Welcome back. We've got your back this morning. Halloween is a holiday enjoyed by so many of us, right? From toddlers to kids to adults. And it's one of the best days of the year for a lot of families. But you got to be safe about it when it comes to your four-legged family members. And that's why we've got Bark Busters here. Richard and Vicki Horowitz, thank you so much for being here.
It's our pleasure.
And I want to introduce Lucy, or should I call her Wonder Woman this morning?
Wonder Woman, Lucy, she's a 5-year-old Labradoodle.
Oh, she's so sweet. Look at
really
that face. Hi, Lucy.
She's a very good girl.
And Lucy's in her costume today.
Right, and that's an example of a safe costume because not all costumes are good for pets. Can you explain?
Sure. Some dogs do not like costumes at all. You have to know your dog. Okay. Lucy doesn't mind the body costume, but she will not allow you to put anything on her head. So we have to respect that.
Right, and they'll tell you.
You can read their body language. If they're resistant to you putting something on or they're very fidgety, then they're kind of letting you know they don't really like it. And you also have to introduce the costume to the dog. So you have to put it on the floor, let them smell it, let them feel comfortable. If they don't want anything to do with it, then they're kind of letting you know that they don't want to wear a costume.
That's smart. And when it comes to people costumes, it sounds like it's kind of similar because a lot of adult costumes or kid costumes can be kind of scary for
Very
for
overwhelming,
pets.
Especially, a scary face, a mask, etc. You want to desensitize your dog before Halloween so that all of a sudden on Halloween they don't see these costumes. And adults in costumes, they're tall and it's overwhelming for a dog.
We also tell people that if they are going to dress up as adults in costumes or children in costumes, that you walk around with the costumes on in the house at other times, and you also don't put the masks on until you leave the house, because a dog doesn't always recognize people when their faces are covered. So it's very important that the masks are not put on until the dogs are home and the people have left the house.
That's some great advice. That's something that I would not necessarily think about. And then also trick-or-treaters, a lot of people are coming to the door and I'm sure the dog wants to greet them. Do you recommend the dog not necessarily being in the kitchen or where you open the door, or should they be in another part of the house?
Again, you have to know your dog.
Okay.
Most of the times we tell people, put your dog in a different room. If they have a crate, put them in the crate, put some music on so that they're not distracted by the doorbell ringing and the loud noises outside. A lot of times we also tell people if they have a storm door, open up the window and hand the candy out as the trick-or-treaters come to the door so that the doorbell doesn't constantly keep ringing and getting the dog anxious.
That's good advice.
Yeah, and if you have a dog who's outside, who's mostly outside, it's important to bring them in because unfortunately with loud noises and a lot of people running around, sometimes children can tease dogs. You don't want to set them up for it to be a traumatic experience. But if you do have an outside dog, you really should bring it in a few days before, get it used to being in the house so that's not a change. And if you need to keep them outside, then you try to keep them so they have a dog house or someplace to go into, which will keep them away from the elements of the loud noises and
so smart. Good advice. And you brought this chocolate here as an example of, this can be very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Not so, including the candy, but the wrappers are just as dangerous because there could be segments of the chocolate or the wrapper, if the dog eats the wrapper, could get caught in their intestines.
Right. And of course the chocolate is toxic, and depending on the size, weight, all different things about your dog, it can affect them from vomiting to, unfortunately, death. So you really have to be very careful, and if you have any kind of issues, you call your vet right away.
Are there some candies that are safer? Obviously not to give to pets, but in case they do ingest it, just maybe not having chocolate, maybe having something else around the house.
We try to recommend no candy for the dogs.
Well, no, not to give, but just having it around the house. Is there something that's...
I think more the issue is you have to manage the behavior. You have to make sure it's out of a dog's reach at all times because they can find a wrapper on the floor and smell the chocolate and ingest it. So
especially with kids getting excited and opening up their candy, and I could imagine that would be a tough situation.
And the other thing that's important to remember this time of year is if you do take your dog out with you for trick-or-treating, make sure they're on a secure leash. Make sure their tags are on so that if they did get away, they could be identified.
That's a great
idea. And also
idea.
people should be very careful of when they are walking with their dogs and take them with them, that they're not walking into crowds of children, that they may watch their dog's body language as far as people approaching them. because dogs don't recognize people, and they could be the calmest dog ever, but a dog will protect its owners if it feels that it has to protect them. So if it goes into a very scary environment like a lot of noise, it will automatically try to protect its owners and could make a mistake.
How's Lucy on Halloween?
Lucy's a great dog.
Yeah.
One last thing that's real important is candles. Okay, you know, if Lucy's walking by and the pumpkin has a candle in it, her tail could knock it over, create a fire. So if you're going to, you know, use a battery operated decorations, so
That
just be
makes
careful of
sense.
the decorations that you use.
That's probably just safer in general for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
And even with decorations, you should always have the decorations out prior to the holiday so the dog gets used to seeing them, because every time we make a change in our environment, whether it's putting decorations up, having costumes out, it does affect their behavior. They get stressed by it. So the more you can give them prior notice, the better it is for our dogs.
There you go.
I like Lucy. She's discovering stuff. She's a Wonder Woman here.
She certainly is.
Hey, Lucy, thank you so much for being here this morning. You did a great job. I love that costume.
It's a great
and so,
costume.
good idea, once again, to not have anything in their face, but just to have it on their body.
Right, exactly.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Bark Busters.
Thank
you
you.
always do such
Thank
a
you,
great job.
Stephanie.
Thank you
Such
so much for
wonderful
having
advice
us.
for keeping all of our pets safe, right, Lucy?
That's our
All
goal.
right, I'm going to hang out and pet Lucy some more, but for more information, you can always head to our website, WTNH.com. Just click on that on-air tab and pull it down to the Good Morning Connecticut Weekend section.